I just want us to be okay.
We are okay.
Did she believe you?
Of course she did. She's too loyal to leave.
Leah made his coffee carefully, knowing the last time she trusted him, it cost her everything. 2 sugars. A small splash of oat milk. Stirred 12 times, not 11, not 13, because that was the thing he mentioned once years ago, laughing in the kitchen on a Sunday morning, saying it tasted better that way. She didn't even know when she started counting. It had just become part of her hands. She set the mug on his side of the counter and went back to folding the dish towel. This was 4 months after she forgave him. For months after she sat across from him at the kitchen table, that same table, and listened to him cry. Real crying. The kind where his shoulders shook and he kept pressing the back of his hand against his eyes like he was embarrassed by it. He said he had made the worst mistake of his life. He said he didn't know who he had become. He said she was the only real thing he had, and he had treated her like she wasn't. She believed him. Not immediately. It took 3 weeks of sleeping in separate rooms. It took long phone calls with her friend Maya, where Leah would go quiet mid-sentence because she didn't know what she was trying to say. It took one afternoon where she sat in her car in the parking lot of the grocery store for 40 minutes because she couldn't make herself go inside and act normal. But eventually she believed him. And she came back to the table. And she said okay. Not happily. Not with open arms. She said it the way you say something when you are choosing the harder thing, because you think it is also the right thing. They had been married 6 years at that point. The apartment they shared had her name on the lease. She had signed it 2 years before they got married, and he moved in after the wedding. They had one joint account for shared bills and their own separate accounts for everything else. She was an HR coordinator at a logistics company. He managed operations at a mid-sized packaging firm. Everything was ordinary. Everything was theirs. She forgave him and she meant it. And for the first 2 months, things felt different in a way that almost made her glad she stayed. He put his phone face up on the coffee table every evening. He came to bed at a normal hour instead of staying up alone. He brought groceries home one Wednesday without being asked. Not a big gesture, just eggs and bread. He said, "I love you," when he left for work. Small things. Consistent things. She told Maya, "I think we're actually going to be okay." Maya said, "Good. I hope so, Leah. I really do." She noticed that Maya didn't sound as sure as she did. But she let it go. Then small things started again. Not big things. Small things. 3 months into the reconciliation, she was already in bed reading when he came in from the bathroom. He sat beside her and picked up his phone. Normal. She wasn't watching him. But she noticed, the way you notice something without deciding to, that the screen got darker before he started typing. He had turned the brightness down. She looked at her book. She read the same sentence 4 times. He probably just didn't want the light to bother her. That's what she told herself. It was a reasonable explanation. A kind explanation. She chose it. But she remembered. He started taking calls outside again. Not every call. That would have been too obvious. Most calls he answered normally, standing in the kitchen, talking about work things, inventory numbers, delivery schedules. But certain calls, she couldn't say exactly which ones because she wasn't tracking them. She didn't want to be the woman who tracked them. Certain calls, he would glance at the screen and say, "Let me grab this," and walk to the balcony and close the door. The balcony door had a slight gap in the seal. She could hear the tone of his voice, but not the words. Low. Relaxed. A different relaxed than the way he talked to his work contacts. She was washing dishes when she noticed the jacket. He had 3 jackets he wore regularly. 2 he hung on the coat rack by the front door. 1, a gray zip-up, he kept in the bedroom. Not on the rack. In the bedroom, draped over the chair by the window. Every morning he checked the pocket of that jacket before he left. She had thought it was his work badge. One evening he left the bedroom while she was folding laundry. The jacket was on the chair. She wasn't going to look. She had decided she wasn't going to be the person who looked through his things because they had talked about trust, and she had said she was going to try and she was trying. She put the jacket on the chair back. Straightened it. Her hand caught the pocket. It was heavier than a badge. She didn't open the pocket. She moved to the other side of the room and finished folding the laundry. But she knew. The questions were the worst part. Not because he got angry when she asked them. It would have almost been easier if he had gotten angry. Instead, he got tired. The moment she started a sentence that went in the direction of where were you or who called, or even just you seem distracted lately, his whole body would shift. His shoulders would drop. He would exhale slowly, the kind of exhale that said not again. Are we doing this? He would say. Quietly, without raising his voice. I'm just asking. Leah. And he would say her name like it was a full sentence. Like it contained everything she already knew, but was choosing not to accept. She would stop talking. And then later, alone, she would feel the hot, sour feeling of having done something wrong. Of having accused an innocent person. Of being the difficult one. You're looking for problems, she told herself. You're not healed yet, and you're projecting. He put the phone face up. He cried real tears. She apologized more than once for asking questions. That is the sentence she will remember most when she looks back on this period. She apologized for asking questions. His sister Kimberly came on a Thursday. Kimberly was Nathan's older sister by 5 years. She was the kind of woman who filled a room with her opinions before she finished taking off her coat. She loved Nathan in the way that some older siblings love a younger one, completely, a little blindly, and in a way that required everyone else to agree with her assessment of him. She hugged Leah at the door and said, "You look tired, honey," the way people say it when they mean something else. They sat in the living room. Nathan made tea. Kimberly talked about her own marriage, her kids, a renovation they were doing on their house. Normal visiting talk. Leah was fine. Then Kimberly said, not to anyone in particular, looking at her tea mug, "I think women hold on to small mistakes too long. Men make mistakes. Big ones sometimes. But women who can't let it go and keep bringing it back up, they push good men to give up." Leah felt the sentence go through her like cold water. She looked at Nathan. He was looking at his mug. "I think forgiveness takes time," Leah said. Her voice was steady. "Of course," Kimberly said, nodding. "But there's a difference between taking time and keeping score." No one said anything for a moment. Nathan said, "More tea, Kim?" Kimberly said yes. Leah sat there with her hands around her mug and thought about the jacket pocket, the lowered screen brightness, the balcony door. "You are keeping score," she told herself. "That's all this is. You're not healed. You're keeping score, and it's going to destroy something that could have been saved." She was quiet for the rest of the visit. After Kimberly left, Nathan kissed her on the forehead and said, "Thank you for being gracious with her. She means well." Leah nodded. She washed the mugs. If you are watching this right now and someone has ever made you feel like you were crazy for noticing something that was completely real, drop "I saw it" in the comments below. Because what Leah was experiencing has a name, and it is not overthinking. The barbecue was Nathan's cousin's idea. A Saturday afternoon in the backyard of a house across town. Family, a few work friends, kids running through sprinklers. The kind of event that looks easy and isn't. Leah wore a yellow dress because yellow was the color she wore when she needed to feel like herself. She helped carry the potato salad. She talked to people she knew well enough and smiled at people she didn't. She was doing what she had been doing for 4 months, showing up. Trying. Nathan was there, and then he wasn't. One moment he was standing near the grill talking to his cousin. Then someone called him over. Then she looked up and he wasn't near the grill or with the cousin or anywhere she could see. She didn't panic. She got a drink. She talked to a woman she'd met once at Christmas. She checked the time. 15 minutes. She walked to the back of the yard. He wasn't there. She checked near the cars. She went inside to use the bathroom and glanced around the main rooms. No Nathan. 30 minutes. She went back outside and stood near the food table and acted like she was choosing between 2 things to eat. 40 minutes. Then he was there. Coming from the side of the house, around the fence line, phone in hand, looking at his screen. He looked up and saw her, and something moved across his face, quickly, like a shadow, before he smiled. "Hey," he said. "Where have you been?" She looked at him. "I was here," she said. "You want to get a plate? Food's getting cold." That was it. No explanation. No sorry, work call, or had to take that outside. Just a redirect. Just a question that turned the moment around, so that somehow she was the one being asked where she had been. On the drive home, she said, "You were gone for a while." "I told you. My boss called." "It happens, Leah. You didn't tell me." He exhaled. The same exhale. I am not doing this tonight. She looked out the window at the dark road. That night she lay beside him listening to him breathe into sleep, and she counted the ceiling tiles with her eyes and thought about 40 minutes. Where someone goes for 40 minutes at a family barbecue. What is on the other side of a fence? Why your face does that particular thing when you come back? She told herself she was overthinking. She did not sleep until almost 4 in the morning. The document was a supplier contract. 12 pages. He needed it printed and left on the counter before 7 the next morning because he had an early meeting. He texted her from the office. Babe, can you print the Harlow contract off my laptop? Password is the same. It's in the downloads folder. Thank you. Simple. Domestic. She had done things like this before. She opened the laptop at the kitchen table, typed the password, went to the downloads folder and found the Harlow contract. Opened it. Went to print. The printer was in the small second bedroom they used as a home office. She walked the laptop in, opened the print settings, sent the document. While the printer ran, she set the laptop on the desk. A notification slid down from the top of the screen. She wasn't trying to see it. She was reaching past the laptop to straighten the paper tray. But she saw it. A name. Not a new name. A name she recognized from 8 months ago when the world first fell apart. A name she had been told was done. Was over. Was part of a terrible mistake that her husband had cried real tears about at the kitchen table. She sat down on the floor next to the printer. The printer kept going. Page 1. Page 2. She picked up the laptop and she opened the message thread. She had not planned to do this. She was not the kind of woman who went through phones or read private messages. She had been proud of that. She had held on to that pride for 4 months as proof that she was choosing trust. But the notification had been right there. She read. The messages went back. She scrolled slowly, her hands steady in a way that surprised her. 6 weeks. 7 weeks. The thread was not from before. It was not old. It was continuous. It had never stopped. He had not ended it. He had performed ending it. He had performed the crying and the regret and the 12 times stirred coffee and the phone face-up on the coffee table. He had performed all of it. And while he was performing it, while she was lying awake at 4 in the morning choosing to believe she was overthinking, he had been continuing. She kept reading. And then she found it. A message from him to the other woman. Her name was Vanessa. Leah could see the name at the top of the thread. A message from 8 weeks ago where he was apparently talking about whether Vanessa was worried about Leah finding out again. His message said, she won't. She's too loyal to leave. Even if she found something, she'd find a way to explain it to herself. That's just how she is. The printer finished. 12 pages in a neat stack in the tray. Leah sat on the floor beside it and read that message for more times. Not crying. Just reading. The way you read something when you are making absolutely sure you understand every word. Too loyal to leave. He had said that about her. He had explained her to someone else like she was a feature he had figured out. Like her love for him was a lock he had a key to. Like her forgiveness was not a gift she had given him, but a system he had learned to operate. She put the laptop on the desk. She picked up the 12 printed pages. She walked to the kitchen and set them on the counter for his 7 o'clock meeting. Then she went to the bathroom and ran the tap cold and held her wrists under it for a while. Then she called Maya. Maya. It's late. Are you? Can you come tomorrow? A pause. I'll be there at 9. Thank you. She hung up. She went to bed. She lay on her side of the mattress, and Nathan's gray zip-up jacket was on the chair by the window, and she looked at it in the dark and felt something shifting somewhere in her chest. Not breaking. Something that had been cracked for 4 months, finally deciding what shape it was going to take. Maya arrived at 8:54. Leah had already made coffee. She had already showered and dressed and done her hair the way she did for work. She was not a mess. That was the first thing Maya noticed when she walked in. That Leah looked collected in a way that was almost alarming. Leah told her everything. She told it the way she was going to tell it for the rest of her life. Without decoration, without performance, just the facts in the order they happened. The brightness turned down on the phone. The jacket. The balcony door. The 40 minutes at the barbecue. The message thread. The 12 pages printed and stacked on the counter. Too loyal to leave. Maya sat across from her and did not interrupt once. When Leah finished, Maya said, "What do you need from me?" "Not I told you so. Not you should have listened. Just what do you need?" Leah said, "I need to know what the apartment lease says about notice periods." Maya blinked, then nodded. Okay, pull it out. Let's look. The lease was in Leah's name, had always been in her name. Nathan was listed as an occupant, not a cosigner. She had never changed it when he moved in because they had talked about it and she had meant to, and it had never happened. This turned out to be the most useful piece of paperwork she owned. Maya, read the relevant section. 30 days written notice to remove an occupant listed without cosigner rights, Maya said. That's it. 30 days. Leah picked up a pen. She didn't write the letter that morning. She needed to think clearly, and she needed a few more days, and she knew that. But she held the pen, and the holding of it felt important. I'm not doing this out of anger, Leah said. I know, Maya said. I'm doing it because I finally believe what I saw. Maya reached across the table and put her hand over Leah's. They drank their coffee. The family event was a Friday evening. Nathan's company had their quarterly gathering, a dinner at a restaurant space downtown, spouses invited, the kind of thing where everyone dressed nicely and talked about things that didn't matter while trying to seem like they were all very happy. Leah went. She had decided to go before she found the message thread. She had already told Nathan she would be there. She was not going to cancel. She was not ready to make any public moves yet, and she was not going to be controlled by the situation, going or not going. She wore a dark blue dress. She did her hair. She looked exactly like what she was, a woman who knew something, sitting quietly in a room of people who didn't. The dinner was large round tables, 8 people each. Nathan was across the room most of the evening doing the thing he did well, being warm and easy in a crowd, laughing with the right timing, touching shoulders, making people feel comfortable. He was genuinely good at it. She had always found that attractive. She was finding it useful to notice now how practiced it looked. Kimberly was there. She had come as +1 to an older relative who worked with Nathan's company. She found Leah near the appetizer table. You look beautiful, Kimberly said. The kind of compliment that is also a question. Thank you, Kim. Kimberly tilted her head. You doing okay? You seem quiet. I'm fine. Nathan has really been trying. I hope you can see that. Leah picked up a small plate and chose 2 items from the table. She was not going to have this conversation, which was not agreement and not argument, which was just a sound. Kimberly touched her arm. Some marriages need more grace than others. That's all I'm saying. You don't want to look back and... Kim. Leah turned and looked at her directly. I appreciate that you love your brother. I do. But I'm not going to talk about my marriage tonight. Kimberly pulled her hand back. I just want what's best for both of you. Leah nodded and moved to find her table. She sat between a woman from Nathan's finance department and an older man whose name she immediately forgot. She made conversation. She was pleasant. She ate the first course. Halfway through the evening, Nathan's manager stood to say a few words, short, complimentary things about the team. And then Kimberly, apparently asked in advance because that was the kind of thing Kimberly would arrange for herself, stood up and said she wanted to add something personal. She talked about Nathan, about how hard the past year had been for their whole family, about how proud she was of him for fighting for what matters. She talked about how rare it was to see a man committed to his marriage in the modern world. She talked about the couple sitting in this room tonight who had chosen each other, even through fire. People smiled. Some nodded. A woman 2 tables over put her hand on her husband's arm. Leah sat 3 chairs away from Nathan at their table and held a glass of water and looked at the tablecloth. She had the message thread in her memory word for word. She did not say anything during Kimberly's speech. But after, when the room relaxed back into conversation and the woman next to her asked, How are you 2 doing, really? It's been a hard year, hasn't it? Leah looked at her and said calmly, without drama, without build-up. He never stopped. The woman blinked. Sorry. The affair. He never stopped it. I found out last week. She said it the way you report a fact. Because it was a fact. And she was done organizing her face around other people's comfort. The woman across from her had gone still. The older man to her other side had slowed his fork. Oh, the woman said softly. Oh, Leah. I'm so sorry. Thank you, Leah said, and picked up her fork. She did not look at Nathan for the rest of the evening. She did not need to. She started on a Sunday. Not because Sunday was symbolic. Because Sunday was when Nathan left early to play tennis with a friend, and she had 3 hours in the apartment alone, and 3 hours was enough. She pulled his jackets off the coat rack, both of them. The gray zip-up from the bedroom chair. She folded them the way she folded everything, neatly, and put them in the large canvas bag she used for donations. Then she stopped, removed them, and put them in a separate pile on his side of the closet. She wasn't doing anything rash. She was being deliberate. She took the tennis calendar off the refrigerator, the one she had bought and filled in with their joint plans for the next 2 months. His cousin's birthday dinner, which she had volunteered to organize food for. A weekend trip she had researched and was going to book. A thing at her own office she had planned to bring him to. She sat at the kitchen table with the calendar and a pen, and she went through each item. His cousin's birthday dinner. She texted the cousin directly and said she would not be organizing the food this year. She was sorry. She hoped someone else could take it on. The cousin replied within 5 minutes with a string of question marks. She didn't answer. The weekend trip, she hadn't booked it yet. She closed the browser tab. Her office thing. She removed his name from the +1 form she had submitted. It took 22 minutes. She put the calendar in the recycling bin. Then she went to the small dish beside the front door. The dish she had put there 2 years ago because Nathan was always losing things and she thought a dedicated spot might help. And she picked up the spare key. The one she had given him to the apartment. Her apartment, with her name on the lease. She held it for a moment. It was just a key. Brass, unremarkable, worn a little at the edges from years of use. He had lost the first one she gave him, early in the marriage, not from carelessness, just one of those things. And she had gone to the hardware store and had 2 copies made so there would always be a spare. That had felt like love at the time. Being the one who made sure there was always a spare. She set the key on the counter. She was not going to hand it to him dramatically. She was not planning a scene. But she was not going to leave it in the dish either. She was not going to continue the ordinary gesture of a life that was no longer ordinary. She left it on the counter where he would see it. Nathan came home from tennis and found her sitting at the table with tea. He saw the key. She watched him see it. "What's that about?" he said. Carefully. "I'm asking you to leave the apartment," she said. "I've drafted the formal notice. You have 30 days. You're listed as an occupant." I checked. He went very still. "Leah, I saw the messages, Nathan. I wasn't going to. I was printing your contract. But I saw them." The muscle in his jaw moved. "That's not. I read them. I read the whole thread. I read what you said about me." He set his tennis bag down slowly. "Let's talk about this. Please. Leah, let's just sit down, Anne." "I've been sitting down for 4 months," she said. "I'm done sitting." He tried. She will give him that. He tried the way he had tried at the kitchen table 8 months ago. The quiet voice, the careful word choices, the look on his face that had once been convincing. He said he was sorry. He said he didn't know why he kept making this choice. He said she deserved better, and he knew it. She listened to all of it. When he finished, she said, "You told her I was too loyal to leave." He opened his mouth. Closed it. "That was my loyalty you were counting on. Not a weakness. Mine. And you turned it into your safety net." She picked up her mug and went to the kitchen to rinse it. "The 30-day notice is on the printer," she said with her back to him. "You can contest it if you want. But the lease is in my name, and a lawyer confirmed your options before I said any of this to you." She had called a housing attorney 2 days earlier. A 40-minute consultation. She had paid for it with her own account. She knew exactly where she stood. He didn't contest it. Kimberly called the next morning. Leah let it go to voicemail. Then she listened to the message. "Leah, I don't know what happened last night, but I think we need to talk before you make any decisions you can't undo. Nathan called me this morning. He's devastated. I know he's not perfect, but you have something real and..." Leah deleted the message. Then she called Kimberly back. Because she was not going to be someone who avoided. She was going to be someone who finished things. "Kim," she said when Kimberly answered, surprised. "Leah, I want you to know I don't have any anger toward you. I know you love your brother. I'm not calling to argue." "Then what are you?" "I'm calling to tell you that I'm done protecting this. I'm not going to be quiet to keep the family comfortable. I'm not going to keep covering for him. What he did, both times, you knew something was wrong and you made me feel like the problem was that I noticed. I needed you to know that I know that now." Silence on the other end. "I hope you're kind to the next woman in his life," Leah said. "I really do. She'll need it." She hung up. She stood in the kitchen for a moment. She was not shaking. She had expected to be shaking. She was not. What Leah did not know, what she found out 3 weeks later through Maya, who found out through someone adjacent to Nathan's workplace, was that Vanessa had ended things herself. Not because Leah exposed her or any dramatic confrontation. Vanessa had read the same messages Leah had read. The thread had things in it about Vanessa too. The same performing, the same management, the same careful calibration of how much to give each person to keep them from leaving. Vanessa had figured out she was being handled. Not loved. Handled. She sent Nathan one final message. Maya showed Leah a screenshot that Vanessa had apparently sent to a mutual contact, not as gossip, but as warning. "You were running a system," Vanessa had written. "I was part of the system. So was she. I hope she gets out." Leah read that once, folded the phone face down on the table, and felt something complicated move through her. Not gratitude exactly, not toward Vanessa, not toward the situation, but something like recognition. The recognition of what had been done to both of them by the same person who was very good at making each of them feel chosen. She was not going to be in contact with Vanessa. That was not the story. But she was glad Vanessa had seen it too. It meant she hadn't been alone in being deceived. And it meant no one could tell her she had imagined it. 3 weeks into Nathan's 30 days, he found a short-term rental and moved the rest of his things out on a Tuesday. Leah was at work. She had planned it that way. She gave him a 3-hour window while she was not in the apartment, because she did not want to stand in the hallway and manage her own face while he packed. She left a note on the counter that said only, "Please leave both keys in the dish." He did. She came home at 6 o'clock. She put her work bag down. She walked to the dish. 2 keys. Both of them. The spare and the original. She picked them up and held them in her palm for a moment. The first time he got a key to this apartment, she had watched his face when she handed it to him. He had looked at it and then at her and said, "This is real, isn't it?" She had thought he meant the relationship. She had thought he meant the life they were building. She looked at the 2 keys in her hand. She dropped them in the trash because they were no longer useful, and she was done keeping things that had no purpose. Then she went to the refrigerator and found the leftover soup she had made Sunday, and she heated it up, and she ate at the kitchen table alone. It was quiet in the apartment. A specific kind of quiet. Not the quiet of absence, not the quiet of loneliness. The quiet of a space that belongs completely to you. She ate her soup. She called Maya after, and they talked for an hour about nothing in particular. A movie Maya wanted to see, a thing that happened at Leah's office that was mildly ridiculous, weekend plans. Regular life. When Leah hung up, she sat for a while in the quiet apartment. She thought about the 4 months she had spent choosing to believe she was overthinking. She thought about the sighs, the exhausted looks, the way he had said her name like a sentence. She thought about Kimberly in the living room saying women who can't let it go push good men away. She thought about the 40 minutes at the barbecue, and the brightness turned down on the screen, and the jacket pocket she had made herself not open. She had not been overthinking. She had been right, consistently, every time. And she had chosen his version of reality over her own because his version required less of her to be broken. That was what forgiveness had cost her. Not the act of forgiving, not the decision to try again. Those were not the mistake. The mistake was forgiving so fast that she gave him the blueprint. She had shown him, in detail, what it looked like when she chose to stay. And he had taken notes. He had learned exactly how much performance it took to reset her. He had used her mercy as a manual. She was not going to be angry at herself for that. She had loved someone. She had tried. That was not stupidity. But she was going to carry the knowledge forward, the way you carry a lesson that costs something real. Carefully. Permanently. She turned the lamp off in the living room. She went to bed on her side of the mattress. Just her side now, not designated by habit, but simply chosen because she liked the left. She did not lie awake counting ceiling tiles. She slept. There are women who will stay in the version of the story that is easier to believe. Leah had been one of them for 4 months. She was not ashamed of that. She had stayed because staying felt like love and love felt like the point. But she had learned something that you cannot teach a person in advance. You can only learn it by living it. Forgiveness is for you. It is the thing you do to put down the weight. But it is not a promise that the other person has changed. It is not a contract. It is not proof. When Nathan left his phone face up on the coffee table for 2 weeks, that was not change. That was the length of time he had calculated it would take before he could face it down again. When he sighed and said, "Are we doing this?" that was not exhaustion. That was control. That was the fastest way to make a woman stop asking questions without having to answer them. And when he said she's too loyal to leave, he was not wrong about her loyalty. He was wrong about what loyalty is. Loyalty is not staying regardless of cost. Loyalty is honoring the people and the values that deserve it. She had been loyal to the wrong version of him, the version that cried at the table. Now she was loyal to herself. And that was not something he could turn down the brightness on. If this story found you at the right time, please give it a like and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you ever made yourself believe you were overthinking something you actually saw clearly, drop "I saw it" in the comments. You were not crazy. You were just kind first. There is a difference. We will be here with another story very soon.